The room hummed like a tired hive. The monitor kept a small, steady beep that felt too calm for what was happening inside my chest. Antiseptic pinched my nose. The plastic of the oxygen mask cooled my cheek. I could taste the stale trace of rubber every time I drew a breath. My chart said room 514B, recovery. My gut said danger. Dr. Peter Myers stood at my bedside with his hands folded over a clipboard, eyes soft as if he were about to read a bedtime story. He didn't. He leaned in until the clean aftershave on his jaw filled the space between us. His lips barely moved. "If you sleep tonight," he whispered, "you'll never wake up." My fingers went cold. The words didn't feel like a metaphor. They landed like a diagnosis. I followed his gaze to the window where my husband, Aaron Langston, stood pretending to scroll through his phone. He had that careful posture he used at office parties. Shoulders square, smile easy, eyes doing their own math. Dr. Myers straightened, voice turning bright and normal for the room microphones. "Vitals are stable, Grace. We'll manage pain with a light dose. Fluids at 42 milliliters per hour. You'll be home soon." He set my water on the tray. As the cup touched the plastic, his fingers slipped a folded slip of paper beneath it. Smooth, practiced. Aaron stepped closer, hand covering mine. "Hear that? You're going to be fine," he said. His palm felt like a glove warmed by someone else. "Just rest. The body heals in sleep." The nurse wheeled in a small cart, wheels squeaking. Latex gloves snapped, a sound like small flags in the wind. She placed 2 unmarked white pills into a paper cup. No brand, no code, just white. "These now?" I asked, my voice thin. She glanced at Aaron, then at the doctor. "Evening meds," she said, not meeting my eyes. I lifted the cup. The pill's chalky edge scraped my tongue. A tiny ridge, a bitter that wasn't hospital bitter, more like aspirin mixed with metal. I tilted my head back, then curled my tongue and trapped the pill behind my molar. I made a show of swallowing with water. Aaron watched my throat, hungry for the movement. "Good," he said softly. "You always do what's best." The aftertaste burned. I smiled anyway. Micro Reveal NAR1 came the moment the nurse cleared the tray. I slid the cup a fraction, crooked a finger, and pinched the folded slip. 3 shaky words in blue ink. "Don't take them." The initials under it, PM. I tucked the paper into my blanket seam. "Peter," Aaron said to the doctor, friendly, almost brotherly. "You sure about the discharge tomorrow? I can set up a recliner at home." "She shouldn't strain." "Let's see how the night goes," Dr. Myers answered, not looking at him. Another beep. Another promise of normal. The smell of brewed coffee drifted from the nurse's station, warm and bitter, mixing with bleach. It made me think of mornings when Aaron used to set a mug near my pillow before work, before things felt arranged. He pulled his chair to my bedside. "Close your eyes," he said. "Let sleep do its job." I set my breath on a metronome. In, out. Not too fast, not too slow. I let my eyelids fall to slits and watched the reflection in the black screen of the TV. Aaron's shoulders relaxed, satisfied. His thumb moved on his phone. A lock screen lit his face from below. For a second, the angle showed me everything. Micro Reveal number 2. A message banner glowed. L. It's almost done. No name, just an initial and a promise. I blinked and missed the rest. The phone dimmed. The room felt like a held breath. I pressed my tongue to my back molar and hooked the pill onto my gum. When Aaron stood to stretch and mumbled something about getting coffee, I shifted my jaw, slipped the chalky half into my palm, and tucked it into the pleat of my blanket. Another half clung to the roof of my mouth. I coughed into a tissue, discreetly, and spat it out. The bitterness scraped my throat like a match head. He came back with a paper cup. "Decaf," he said, offering it like peace. The cup lid was already removed. The smell was right. The familiarity felt wrong. "I'm fine," I said. "Water's enough." He sipped his own coffee and sat down again, a little too close. His eyes had the shine of a man who'd rehearsed his lines. Time crawled to 9:17 p.m. I told myself I would not sleep, not even for a minute. Micro Reveal number 3. The IV bag had been changed earlier by a nurse I didn't recognize. No name badge, only a clipped lanyard. She'd smiled without teeth. "Routine," she'd said. The label on the new bag read, Saline. The drip burned a little going in. Saline never burned. I breathed around the plastic mask and counted the beeps in groups of 10. It was something to do besides panic. I pressed the call button. The nurse came, a different one this time. Her shoes whispered over the floor. Yes, Mrs. Langston? Could I have ginger ale? I asked. My mouth tastes strange. She nodded. I'll bring crushed ice. When she was gone, Aaron leaned in. What did you and Myers talk about? Casual voice, a small hook on the line. Chicken soup, I said. And naps? He smiled politely. Good, because that's exactly what you need. Micro reveal, Sherba 4. He checked his watch, not the clock. The watch he never took off, the one he'd gotten from the clinic director as a gift 2 years ago after landing a research grant. I remembered the thank you card I wrote for him back then. I remembered the way he'd said we about that money. We, not I. Dr. Myers popped back in at 9:31 with a light joke about hospital food. I'll be on call until midnight, he said. Ring if you need anything. Our eyes met for half a beat. He didn't blink. When he left, Aaron reached for my hand. Let's pray, he said, and bowed his head. He prayed for rest, for deep, healing sleep. His thumb stroked my knuckles to the rhythm of the beeps. The words were right. The music underneath was wrong. A cart rattled in the hall. Laughter from 2 nurses drifted in, bright and normal and cruel against the dread in my stomach. I worked the tissue under my thigh, rolling the spit-wet pill deeper into the fold. I kept my breathing slow. I wanted to see what he'd do next. He stood. I'll grab dinner, he said. Turkey sandwich, extra pickles. You love those. I do, I said, and felt the lie move through my teeth. I hadn't wanted pickles in months. When the door clicked behind him, I slid my hand under the blanket and found the tissue. The pill had softened into paste. I wrapped it twice and tucked it beneath the mattress seam. Then I reached for the folded slip again and read it one more time to make sure the words hadn't changed. Don't take them. Micro reveal. Number 5. The edge of the slip had a faint gray smear, like the side of a pencil, drawing rubbed with a thumb. It wasn't a pencil. It was graphite from a carbon copy. That meant notes. That meant records. That meant someone had put what he whispered on paper somewhere else, too. I eased the oxygen mask aside and listened. The hallway was quiet. I turned to the bedside table to slide the slip into the plastic Bible drawer where nurses rarely looked. The slip wasn't there. My skin tightened across my arms. I lifted the water cup. I checked under the tray edge. I patted the blanket crease. Nothing. The monitor beeped in a soft, steady denial. I looked at the chair by the window. Empty. Aaron? My voice came out smaller than I liked. Silence. The air conditioner kicked on, a low, cold breath over my feet. I clicked the nurse button. No answer. I pulled my mask down and swung my legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cool and gritty under my heel, like powder had spilled hours ago and no one had wiped it up. My IV tugged, a small sting. I braced on the rail and stood. A tendon in my calf trembled. The room tilted, corrected, tilted again. I slid the curtain a few inches and peered into the hallway. Lights glowed dimly. A custodian mopped 3 doors down, humming. No, Aaron. No, Dr. Myers. A paper menu fluttered on a tray, an edge ticking against plastic like a tiny metronome. I stepped back and pressed my palm to the bed for balance. My phone, in the drawer, buzzed once. A flash of the screen. I opened the drawer. No phone. I checked the pillow. The sheets. Nothing. The door handle jittered, then stopped. I held my breath and counted to 4. Steps moved away, soft, careful. Micro reveal. Sherba 6. A single line on my chart, half torn, peeked from under the clipboard at the foot of my bed. DNR in faint gray, like it had been stamped and erased and stamped again. I swallowed. The plastic mask whispered as it brushed my cheek. I slid back onto the bed and pulled the blanket to my waist. I laid my hands on the sheet like I was a statue waiting for a museum to open. A shadow crossed. The frosted glass in the door, tall and familiar. It paused, then kept moving. The clock clicked to 9:47. I stared at the chair by the window. Aaron's jacket hung on the back, sleeve draped, pockets heavy. For a second, I considered standing again, rifling through it, finding my phone, finding anything. But the room felt more watched than empty. I closed my eyes to slits again. I let my lips part. I counted 3 breaths, 4, 5. The door opened an inch. A line of colder air slid across my ankles. No voice came with it. I kept breathing. I kept still. I waited for a face to enter the crack. It didn't. The door closed. The latch clicked home. I reached under the mattress seam for the tissue with the pill. My fingers found only cotton. The tissue was gone. I looked at the window, the chair, and the space where Aaron should have been. I opened my eyes fully, heart thudding, and saw that the note had vanished and Aaron's chair was empty, as if he had never been there at all. They discharged me early, too early. Dr. Myers was gone, and another doctor, one I'd never met, signed the release papers. Aaron smiled the entire time, talking about how lucky I was to recover so fast. Lucky. The word stuck to my ribs like syrup that wouldn't wash off. When we reached home, the smell of fresh paint and lemon polish hit me before I even stepped inside. Every photo frame was straight, every cushion lined. The house felt less like home and more like a stage, ready for someone to take a bow. Aaron didn't guide me to our bedroom. Instead, he opened the guest room door, the one we barely used. "It's closer to the bathroom," he said. "You'll sleep better here." I nodded, pretending to agree, though the sheets smelled like detergent and something newer. Plastic wrapping, maybe. A new mattress? The timing was strange. He unpacked my bag himself, his hands too careful, like he didn't trust me not to break something. "Your meds are in the top drawer," he said. 2 after breakfast, 1 before bed, same as the hospital. I smiled weakly. "You've memorized everything." "That's what a good husband does," he answered and kissed my forehead. The gesture felt mechanical. When he left the room, I checked the bottle labels. The pills looked the same as the hospital ones, plain white, unmarked. A sticky note sat on top of the nightstand. My own handwriting. 3 words. "Do not take what he gives you." I had copied the doctor's warning before leaving the hospital. Seeing it again made my throat dry. I took a pill out, held it under my tongue while pretending to swallow, then slipped it into a tissue. Later, I hid it inside the bedside trash can. Micro Reveal Ner 1 came the next morning. I lifted the lid and saw small white dust specks in every balled-up tissue. They looked like sugar grains, my own little graveyard of pills. Breakfast was toast, eggs, and warm milk. Aaron watched me take every bite. When I pushed the milk aside, he smiled, but his jaw twitched once. A small break in the mask. "I thought you liked milk," he said. "I do," I said. "Just not today." He reached over, brushed crumbs from my sleeve, and looked at his watch. He always wears his watch. "I'll be working late tonight. Don't wait up." After he left, I sat in the quiet house. The tick of the hallway clock became the only sound. It echoed down the hall like a drop of water hitting metal. I could smell citrus cleaner faintly, and every few minutes, a whiff of Aaron's aftershave drifted through the vent. At noon, I walked into the kitchen to pour water and noticed something odd. The phone cord had been unplugged from the wall. I reconnected it. When I lifted the receiver, no dial tone. Dead. Micro Reveal. Ner 2. Aaron had switched to mobile only, claiming the landline barely worked. I never saw him without his phone, even in the shower. By evening, I felt stronger. My hands didn't tremble. My head didn't ache. Maybe the pills were what had kept me weak. I wanted to believe that. The house felt too quiet. I sat by the window, looking at the garden. The roses I planted last spring were gone, dug out, replaced by neat squares of gravel. Aaron had said they attracted bugs. I used to love those roses. Around 8 p.m., the floor heater clicked on, blowing warm air across the carpet. I closed my eyes for a minute. When I opened them, Aaron stood in the doorway, smiling. "Thought you were asleep," he said. "Just resting." He carried a tray, soup, water, pills. "Dinner in bed. You deserve rest." He set it down and watched. "Go on, eat." I lifted the spoon and sipped. The soup was slightly off, too salty, metallic. I looked at the water glass. Small bubbles clung to the inside. My stomach tightened. "I'll finish later," I said. "Not hungry right now." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Okay, but don't skip your pills." When he left, I poured the soup into the plant by the window and dumped the pills into a napkin. They dissolved into white dust instantly when I ran a bit of water over them. Micro reveal number 3. Pills that melted like sugar. Not medicine, something else. I didn't sleep that night. The tick of the hallway clock, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the scratch of the blanket against my wrists, it all kept me awake. Or maybe fear did. At 3:11 a.m., I heard it, the groan of the old floorboard outside my door. Slow, deliberate steps stopped right there. I froze. The doorknob moved a fraction, then stopped. After a few seconds, the steps retreated down the hall. I stayed still until morning light crept through the curtains. My throat burned from breathing so shallowly all night. When I opened the door, a tray of food sat outside. Toast, orange juice, and 2 pills. But the food was cold, untouched by anyone's hands. Aaron wasn't around. I ate nothing. I just stared at the glass of juice. There were faint smudges on it. Fingerprints. Micro reveal. Number 4. A faint lip mark on the glass rim, not mine. Lipstick. Light pink. I left the tray there. Hours later, when I checked again, it was gone. The plate, the glass, everything. By late afternoon, I began to pack a small bag quietly. Documents, cash, Dr. Myers's note copy. My heart pounded with every drawer I opened. Then I heard it. The sound of wood slamming down the hall. A drawer, followed by the click of a lock. My hands went cold. The sound came from Aaron's study. I stepped into the hallway, every step soft on the carpet. The air smelled of polish and something burnt, like the faint trace of smoke after a blown-out candle. I stood outside his office door, listening. Silence now. Then, the faint creak of his chair and a sigh. He was inside. I moved back to my room before he could hear me. My pulse thudded in my ears, and in that heavy quiet, I understood something deeper than fear. Aaron didn't just want control. He wanted certainty, about my silence, about my life, about what came next. The house felt smaller than ever. And somewhere behind that locked door, the truth about my husband waited, patient, breathing, and hidden inside a drawer. I'd been dusting picture frames to make noise, something normal to hide the fear. When I lifted our wedding photo from the shelf, the back rattled. A small metal edge scratched my thumb, leaving a gray mark. I peeled away the cardboard and found a key taped behind the frame. The tape had yellowed. He'd hidden it long ago. My pulse thudded. If Aaron kept his study locked every night, maybe this was why. The key fits cleanly. The door clicked, opening to the smell of cologne and warm printer ink, his private weather. Papers were stacked in even rows, his order in everything. The hum of the small desk fan filled the silence. On the oak surface sat a few bank envelopes. I told myself not to look. Then I looked. Each was stamped, Langston Federal Credit. Neat blue ink, transfer, J. Langston. Deposits dated June 14th and June 16th, 2 days after my surgery. Amounts exact, $120,000 and $38,400. I read them twice, mouthing the numbers like foreign words. My name was nowhere. My stomach tightened. I remembered Aaron rushing me through routine forms before the surgery, his voice calm but his hand pressing the pen into mine. Just sign here, Grace. Date, June 12th. It's for the insurance discount. Discount. That morning, before anesthesia. The papers on his desk fluttered slightly from the fan. I pressed my palm to hold them still and felt the dry dust of paper on my fingertips, the grain of the oak under my wrist. My skin prickled. There, half buried under a ledger, lay a photocopy of a consent form. My signature in thick black ink. I traced the first letter. The loop of my G was wrong. Mine always leaned right. This one slanted left. A forgery. I leaned back, breath shallow. My reflection in the computer screen looked like a stranger. Then I noticed the drawer. The bottom edge didn't sit flush. When I ran my nail along it, a faint seam appeared. An inner panel. Older wood, smaller keyhole cut in the middle. I straightened, scanning the desk. Only one drawer handle showed where. The rest shone anew. He'd been opening this one more than any other. A soft garage door rumble broke the quiet. The sound rolled through the floor. My stomach dropped. Aaron was home. I closed the ledger fast, pushed the chair in. My hands shook as I wiped a smear of dust from the photo frame so he wouldn't see the gap. Footsteps crossed the kitchen tile, steady, confident. I reached for the key I'd found and tucked it into my pocket, but as my fingers brushed the underside of the desk, something else caught. A second, flatter key, cool and thin, taped beneath the lip. I peeled it free and froze, hearing the door from the kitchen creak open. That tiny metal piece lay in my palm, warm from my skin, and I knew it wasn't for the door I'd just unlocked. It was for whatever hid behind that small wooden panel, the one part of Aaron's life he'd never meant me to see. The small key slid in as if it had been waiting for years. When I turned it, the drawer gave a quiet sigh. Old leather and cold metal, the smell of something hidden too long. Inside lay a neat order that felt rehearsed. 3 unmarked pill bottles, a stack of clipped insurance forms, and 1 sealed envelope with heavy lettering across the front. Policy A, beneficiary, Aaron D. Langston. My breath got stuck halfway up my throat. The paper edges were new, crisp, untouched by time. I lifted the first sheet. The dates matched my surgery week. The second page was worse, a photocopy of my hospital chart with words circled in blue. Do not resuscitate, signed by spouse. The signature underneath was mine, but not mine. The G in Grace leaned the wrong way again. Someone had practiced. Micro reveal No. 1. The policy number matched the deposit slips I saw earlier, Shun 44821A. Aaron hadn't just forged my consent, he'd tied it to the money. I grabbed my phone. The lens shook as I snapped photo after photo. Click, click, each flash low and quick. My palm slid on the smooth phone case, slick with sweat. I swallowed the sound of my own breathing. Under the papers, a small note card waited. Neat handwriting, not Aaron's. L will confirm delivery after tonight. L. Linda Voss, his co-worker. The one who called him at odd hours, whose name I'd seen in the text. It's almost done. Micro reveal. Sure too. The faint smell of alcohol swab clung to the paper edges, as if someone had cleaned fingerprints. Not new, not old, recent. I touched the pill bottles. The labels were peeled away cleanly, with faint glue marks. One cap is still tacky, each bottle half filled with small white tablets, same shape as the ones I'd pretended to swallow. Sensory trio, the dry rasp of paper, faint alcohol smell, and the cool varnish of the desk pressing against my forearm as I leaned in. My mind whispered one thought: proof. Real, physical proof. I took one pill, wrapped it in tissue, and slid it into my pocket. Maybe a lab could test it. Maybe someone would believe me if I had something solid. Then the air shifted. The faint groan of a floorboard behind me. Footsteps, slow, confident, coming closer. I pushed the papers back exactly how they'd been, sealed the envelope, and eased the drawer shut. The key was still in the lock. I twisted it once, praying it wouldn't click loudly. The sound that came instead was worse. The turn of the brass doorknob. The drawer stayed half open, an inch of light catching the white of the envelope inside. I froze. My pulse hammered behind my ears. Aaron's shadow pooled across the carpet before I saw him. The smell of his cologne reached me first. Cedar and mint, the scent that used to mean home. He stepped in without speaking, eyes sliding from my hand to the desk, to the tiny glint of the key still hanging from the drawer. "What are you doing in my office, Grace?" His voice was soft, softer than fear deserved, and the drawer between us was still open. "I was just looking for stamps," I said. My voice stayed steady, though the skin at the back of my neck buzzed. I eased the drawer closed with a soft slide, as if it had never held anything worth remembering. Aaron smiled, too easily, all teeth, no warmth. "You could have asked me," he said. His eyes scanned the desk surface, moving over pens, folders, and frames, an inventory check, not curiosity. "I didn't want to bother you," I said. He picked up a stapler, set it down again. "You've never cared about stamps before." I forced a laugh. "Guess I'm nesting." His expression didn't change, but the muscle near his temple flickered once. "You should rest," he said finally, and brushed past me. His shoulder touched mine. It felt colder than metal. "I'll make tea." When he left the room, I slipped my phone from my pocket and tucked it up my sleeve. My heart thudded so hard I could feel it in my gums. I stood still until I heard water running in the kitchen. In the hallway mirror, I saw him behind me. He thought I couldn't. His smile had dropped. He stared at the study door like it had betrayed him. Then, just as fast, he pasted the calm face back on and called out, "Chamomile or mint?" "Mint," I said, trying to sound normal. When he handed me the cup, his fingers brushed mine. Smooth, rehearsed, testing for tremor. "We'll get through this, Grace," he said softly. "I'm here." I smiled because not smiling would raise questions. I know. Later, while the tea cooled untouched on my nightstand, I slipped into the laundry room. The scent of detergent filled the air, clean enough to hide whispers. I dialed Dr. Peter Myers. He answered on the third ring. "Mrs. Langston?" "Doctor," I breathed. "Thank you for warning me at the hospital. I found something. I need your help." Silence stretched. I could hear the hum of a vending machine in the background. Then his voice came, low. "Your husband called me this morning. Asked that all copies of your medical reports be destroyed." My knees went weak. "Destroyed? Why?" "Because," he hesitated, "your original test showed no cardiac defect, none at all." The words didn't make sense. The pills, the policy, the DNR, all built on a lie. "You have proof?" "I kept one copy," he said, "hidden in my car. I don't trust the clinic system anymore." "Can I meet you?" He hesitated again, then said, "Level B, hospital parking lot, 3 o'clock. "I'll be there," I whispered. Static crackled, and then the line went dead. I waited 2 hours before leaving. I didn't pack. Leaving would show guilt. I walked through the living room slowly, passing the photo frames we'd picked together 15 years ago. Wedding day, first house, trip to Seattle. Each one looked staged now, as if I'd been a prop in someone else's story. Aaron was in the garden, trimming plants that weren't even overgrown. His back turned, steady hands moving like he had all the time in the world. He didn't look up as I grabbed my purse. The outside air hit heavy and warm, diesel-tinged from the main road. My car keys felt slick in my hand. The steering wheel's leather was rough, familiar. My phone, hot against my ear, showed no new messages from Dr. Myers. I drove slower than usual, scanning every mirror. A gray sedan followed a few cars behind me, or maybe it was paranoia. At 2:56 p.m., I turned into the hospital lot. Blue lights, yellow tape, sirens. I braked hard. Paramedics moved around a crumpled silver sedan near the exit ramp. A nurse I recognized from the ward stood behind the tape, shaking her head. My chest went hollow. I parked and stepped out, calling his name before I could stop myself. "Dr. Myers." A police officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, please stay back." The smell of burned rubber mixed with antiseptic spray. Reporters were already setting up cameras. Someone whispered, "Single vehicle. Brake failure." I kept walking. "Dr. Myers, please." A paramedic glanced at me, eyes softening for a fraction of a second. Then she turned away and motioned to 2 others. They lifted a covered body bag onto a stretcher. The tag at the foot swung toward me. "Myers, Peter." My legs went out from under me. I caught the side of a post, the metal cutting into my palm. The officer stepped closer. "Ma'am, you can't be here." I nodded, numb, but my eyes stayed on the stretcher as it slid into the ambulance. Behind me, a car door shut softly. I turned. Across the lot, by the row of visitor spaces, stood Aaron, his hands in his pockets, watching. He smiled once, small, polite, and gone before anyone else could notice. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't just fighting for the truth. I was the last person left who even knew it existed. I sat in my car outside the hospital, engine off, watching the red and blue lights fade against the building. The air inside smelled of rubber and fear. Dr. Myers was dead. The only man who'd warned me was gone, and with him, my proof. When the ambulance finally disappeared down the hill, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Then I drove home through the quiet streets. Aaron opened the door before I could reach for my keys. His smile was soft, practiced. "Long day?" he asked, voice calm, too calm. He took my coat, led me inside. "We both need a break," he said lightly. "Maybe Maine for a week, ocean air, fresh start." I nodded because saying no would make him suspicious. "That sounds nice." Later, when he left for groceries, I opened my drawer and swapped the bottles. His white capsules for identical vitamins I'd bought that morning. If he wanted control, I'd let him think he still had it. 3 days passed. My cheeks warmed with color again. The dizziness stopped. My body woke up. The pills had been poisoning me, I was sure now. The kitchen filled with the smell of fresh bread. Aaron hummed while slicing it, lighter clicking in his hand like punctuation. The rough grain of the table pressed against my palm as I smiled and thought, I've outsmarted him. For the first time in weeks, I slept almost peacefully. On the third morning, a stack of mail waited by the coffee pot. One envelope read, Insurance payout approval, $500,000. Beneficiary, Aaron D. Langston. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. Just sign these next few documents, he whispered, slipping a folder into my hands, so I can close it properly. Inside, the top sheet was blank except for one printed line. Spouse, Grace Langston. That night, I slid the blank insurance form under my pillow and stared at the ceiling. Aaron slept beside me, breathing slow and even, as if nothing inside our house was broken. My fingers traced the page edges. If the payout was approved, it meant I was already dead. By morning, the thought had turned solid. I told him, I'm going to the grocery store, forcing my voice to sound light. He didn't even look up from his phone. Get milk. I drove straight past the grocery sign and into the downtown insurance office. The glass doors hissed open, smelling of toner and stale paper. The clerk was young, polite. He asked for my ID, typed a few lines, and frowned. I'm sorry, Mrs. Langston. It says here you're deceased. My pulse jumped. When? He scrolled. Yesterday, October 12th. Micro reveal. My death had been authorized by A. Langston and marked verified. The screen showed the exact time, 4:16, the same hour Aaron had been home making dinner. The printer in the corner whined, spitting out papers for another client. The noise blended with the metallic taste in my mouth. I could smell dry paper dust and the faint cologne of the man next in line. Everything around me blurred, but that one glowing word, deceased. I lifted my phone, snapped a photo of the screen. Hands were shaking. The clerk looked nervous. Ma'am, once the system updates, the payout finalizes automatically. I'm not supposed to say that. Outside, cold air hit my face like a slap. Across the street, Aaron's gray Honda Accord idled, driver's window half down. He wasn't even pretending to hide. I turned and ducked into a side alley, breathing through my sleeve, heart pounding against my ribs. Then my phone buzzed. A text, no name. You shouldn't have gone there. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. The message had no sender ID, but I didn't need one. Aaron. Only he would know exactly where I'd gone. I drove home too fast, rehearsing a calm face. When I opened the door, he was there, folding laundry at the kitchen table, humming softly, completely calm. He looked up with a half smile. You look pale. You shouldn't drive so much, he said, voice smooth as silk, almost tender. Almost, I nodded. You're right. My throat burned from holding the words I wanted to scream. That night, I waited until he fell asleep on the couch, television murmuring low. I turned on my laptop, fingers trembling as I logged into my old tutoring account, the one I hadn't touched in years. Balance, $62,000. I moved every cent into a new account under a new name, Grace Myers. The transfer bar crawled across the screen. When it hit 100%, I exhaled. Micro reveal. It worked. My money, my safety, something he couldn't reach. The next morning, I took the trash out, paper bag clutched in my hand. Ruth Hart, my neighbor of 20 years, was already outside, sweeping her porch. She looked up, eyes narrowing. Everything okay, Grace? That was all it took. My chest cracked open. I told her, half of it, maybe less, about the pills, the forms, and the car at the hospital. She listened without interrupting, her broom forgotten. That night, she knocked on my door. In her hand, a small tape recorder, old and scratched. You should hear this, she whispered. The play button clicked. Aaron's voice spilled out, low, measured. Once she signs, it's done. Then a woman's voice, Linda Voss. She won't see morning. Ruth pressed pause, her face drained of color. Grace, she whispered, do you understand? They're planning it tonight. My heart raced so fast I could hear it in my ears. Tonight. Ruth's warning kept echoing. I thanked her, tucked the tape recorder into my coat pocket, and slipped back through the quiet yard toward my house. Every shadow looked alive. Inside, I went straight to the small wooden box where I'd hidden the duplicate key from Aaron's study. I compared it with the front door key under the lamplight. Identical, except for one extra notch at the base. I moved through the dark hall, careful not to wake him. The first test was the study. The lock gave a soft click. The key fit perfectly. Then I noticed something else. The same key worked in the garage cabinet, too. My pulse jumped. I opened it slowly. Inside sat a black briefcase, the kind with silver corners and a faint smell of oil and chemicals. When I unlatched it, rows of small vials gleamed under the bare bulb, each labeled in neat handwriting. Lot 43A. Trial. My fingers trembled as I lifted one. The liquid inside shimmered clear blue. Then a smaller pocket in the briefcase caught my eye. Inside was a pen recorder, the kind used in meetings. I pressed play. Aaron's voice, calm and professional. She'll be asleep by 11:30. Micro reveal. He'd been recording instructions. Like a procedure, not a plan. My throat closed. The air smelled sharp, chemical. The refrigerator hummed nearby, steady and cold. My hand brushed the steel cabinet handle, slick with condensation. I copied every file I could find onto a flash drive, slipped it into my robe pocket, and turned off the light. Then the headlights swept across the window. Tires crunched gravel. A car door slammed. Linda's voice. "Aaron, she's awake." I froze. My phone buzzed once in my palm. Footsteps rushed toward the kitchen door. Keys jingled. "Grace?" Aaron called softly, too softly. I ducked behind the pantry shelf as the flashlight beam sliced through the kitchen. Dust floated in its path like thin smoke. Aaron's shoes squeaked once against the tile. "If she's still up," he muttered to Linda, "we'll have to do it now." My heart thudded so loud I thought he'd hear it. I lifted my phone, hit record, and held it close to my chest. Linda's voice trembled slightly, lower than usual. "If the police find those test results, we're both done." Aaron's reply came sharply. "Then she won't wake again after tonight." The words hit colder than the rain outside. I moved slowly, inch by inch, keeping to the shadows. The flashlight turned away, giving me one breath of darkness. I slipped through the back door, barefoot. The rain hit hard, cold needles against my skin. My nightgown clung to my legs as I ran across the yard toward Ruth's basement. Mud sucked at my feet. The wind pushed at my back. I pounded on her door. "Ruth, it's me." She pulled it open, eyes wide, hair wrapped in a towel. "Grace?" I fell inside, gasping. The small basement smelled of laundry soap and damp cement. A single lamp buzzed, throwing yellow light across the walls. "They said they'll do it tonight," I whispered. Ruth helped me to a chair. My fingers shook as I replayed the recording. Aaron's voice, Linda's echo. Proof. I saved the file, sent copies to my backup email, then again to another I created just now. The rain smell drifted through the vent, heavy and metallic. My teeth chattered from the cold. I opened Aaron's stolen files again on my phone, scrolling through folders. Payment logs, dates, and amounts. The biggest one, $38,400. Voss Medical Consulting. Linda's company, a direct trail. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. This wasn't just about money. It was planned, structured, clinical. I attached everything. Recordings, screenshots, payment proofs, and sent them to Michelle Tran, an old friend who'd become an attorney in the city. Seconds later, a message blinked back. "Meet me at my office tomorrow morning. Don't trust anyone." The screen dimmed, leaving my reflection, pale, wet, unrecognizable. Tomorrow felt far away. Tonight wasn't over yet. Morning light slipped through the narrow basement window, cutting across the damp air. My phone screen still glowed beside me. Michelle Tran's message. "Come now." Ruth pressed a mug of coffee into my hands. "You shouldn't go alone," she said. "He's capable of anything." I nodded. The fear in her eyes mirrored my own. 10 minutes later, we were in her old sedan. The seatbelt fabric scratched my neck, and the air inside smelled of gasoline and wet wool. Rain had stopped, but the streets still gleamed like mirrors. Neither of us spoke much on the drive. Every red light felt like a warning. Michelle's office sat above a small coffee shop, the kind that smelled of roasted beans and sugar syrup. Inside, the hum of the espresso grinder came through the wall. A steady noise, something human in the middle of all this madness. She met us at the door, shorter than I remembered, hair in a tight bun. She didn't waste time. "Lock it," she said. The click of the lock sounded final. I handed her my phone, showed her the recordings, the payment logs, and the messages. She plugged everything into her computer, reading fast, eyes sharp. After 10 minutes, she leaned back, breath catching. "Grace, this isn't just fraud. This is attempted homicide. You've got proof." Her words sank like a weight in my chest. I had wanted justice, but hearing it out loud made it terrifyingly real. She began typing, printer humming beside her, an injunction request to freeze Aaron's accounts before he could move them. Micro reveal. The printout listed account numbers I'd never seen, all under Aaron's name, each marked joint authorization. Voss Medical Consulting. He was funneling it through Linda's firm, Michelle muttered. Classic concealment. But this, she pointed at the audio file name, this is gold. I stared at the printer paper curling out, warm against my What happens now? We file this by 2 p.m., she said. Once it's processed, he can't touch your assets. He'll know immediately, so expect pressure, maybe intimidation. I laughed softly, no humor left in it. Pressure? That's been my life for months. Ruth stood near the window, arms folded. I'll testify about the tape, she said quietly. You're not doing this alone. Michelle nodded. We'll need her signature. The timestamp matches your recording. It's airtight. For a moment, I let myself breathe. The steady whir of the coffee grinder below filled the silence. I almost believed we might make it out of this alive. Then, the television in the lobby broke through the quiet. Breaking news. Police reopened Dr. Peter Myers' fatal crash as suspicious. The anchor's voice spilled from the speaker. Preliminary evidence suggests possible tampering of vehicle brakes. My throat tightened. He's been cleaning up, I whispered. Michelle turned down the volume. All the more reason to move fast. She began organizing the evidence folders into neat stacks. Ruth checked her watch. We can drive the forms to the courthouse, less digital trail. I nodded, forcing my hands to stay steady as I zipped my purse. Then my phone buzzed once in my coat pocket. No name, no number, just a message. He knows where you are. The letters glowed against the screen, white on black. Outside, the sound of a car door shutting echoed faintly through the thin office wall. Michelle's eyes met mine. Grace, she said softly, did you tell anyone else where you were going? I shook my head. Then the second buzz came, this time from the building's front intercom. Delivery for Mrs. Langston. Michelle's heels clicked fast against the courthouse marble, each step matching the pounding in my chest. She didn't speak as she handed her badge to security, just said, Emergency injunction, Langston case. The hall smelled of floor polish and cold air. Every sound, footsteps, voices, doors, echoed off the stone like we were inside a giant clock counting down. Reporters had already gathered by the courtroom doors. Flashes burst, white light stinging my eyes. Someone shouted, Grace Langston, is it true your husband declared you dead? I kept walking. The weight of their microphones pressed closer, but Michelle's hand on my elbow pushed them away. No comment, she said firmly. Inside, the courtroom felt colder. I placed my palms on the smooth stone rail, grounding myself. Aaron arrived a few minutes later. Gray suit, polished shoes, the picture of control. Beside him walked Linda Voss, mirroring his pace, same color suit, same calm. They looked rehearsed, like actors in a play they'd practiced too long. Our eyes met once. His didn't flicker. The judge entered, robe sweeping, voice steady. We'll hear Langston vs. Langston. Injunction motion. Michelle rose first, her tone clipped but sure. Your Honor, the petitioner presents evidence of financial and medical manipulation intended to hasten death for profit. Whispers rippled across the benches. She played the audio file, Aaron's voice, low but clear. She'll be asleep by 11:30. Then Linda's. She won't see morning. The courtroom froze. Aaron's lawyer objected, muttering about consent and editing, but Michelle handed the chain of custody form to the bailiff before he could finish. Authentic, Time-stamped. Verified. Then came the forged DNR form. The judge leaned forward, squinting. Signatures don't match. Michelle said quietly, "But the initials on the second page. Look carefully." He did. The handwriting was tighter, slanted, feminine, micro-reveal, Linda's initials. The judge motioned for her to stand. "Ms. Voss, did you witness this document?" Linda's face drained of color. Yes, but not directly." "Answer directly," the judge said. Her hand trembled. The pen slipped once against the paper she was asked to identify. Her own handwriting stared back at her. Aaron's jaw tightened. For the first time, I saw something crack in him. Fear, not anger. The judge sighed. "Evidence will be reviewed. Order reserved. Decision tomorrow morning." The gavel struck once. Outside, the noise exploded again. Reporters clustered around the courthouse steps, cameras clicking, voices overlapping. "Mrs. Langston, do you think your husband will face charges? Is it true he faked your death certificate? Are you afraid to go home?" The flashes blurred into white haze. My name, insurance widow case, bounced between them like gossip made real. Ruth and Michelle flanked me, guiding me toward the exit. Then a shadow fell across the marble floor. Aaron brushed past, his shoulder grazing mine just enough to feel the chill of his suit fabric. He didn't stop walking, didn't raise his voice, but he leaned close enough for me to feel his breath on my ear. "Enjoy your victory tonight," he murmured. "It's your last." Then he was gone, disappearing into the flood of reporters and flashlights. The marble under my feet suddenly felt thinner, like the whole building was breathing. I turned to Michelle, whispering, "If he's right." She met my eyes. "Then we don't sleep tonight. Sleep won't come." I sit by Ruth's window, the glass misted from the early chill, and watch dawn spill over the wet street. The light is slow, gray, and soft around the edges, like the world is trying to start over. The newspaper headline on the table catches the light. Langston hearing stuns county. The house is quiet except for small human sounds. The smell of coffee fills the room, the clock ticks steadily, and the rain drips through the old gutter, one drop every few seconds. I count them just to keep my hands from shaking. For the first time in months, I'm not running, but that doesn't mean I'm free. Freedom feels like standing on a frozen lake, afraid the next step might crack the ice. Ruth comes in with a blanket and a worried smile. "You should eat," she says softly. "I can't," I answer, staring at the cup in front of me. It's like I'm still waiting for something. She sits down beside me. That's what survivors do. We wait for the noise to stop. Her voice trembles on the last word. I squeeze her hand. For both of us, silence is still a fragile thing. By mid-morning, a sharp knock breaks that silence. When I open the door, Detective Hall stands there, rainwater dripping from his coat collar. His eyes carry the same weight mine once did, the kind that comes from reading too many ugly truths. "Mrs. Langston," he says gently, "we have a warrant for Aaron's laptop. Mind if we come in?" Ruth steps aside to let them pass. They move quietly through the house, methodical, gloved, like surgeons performing an autopsy on the past. 2 hours later, they find it. A black laptop hidden behind a false panel in Aaron's desk. Dust outlines where it sat undisturbed, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Hall plugs in a drive, downloads files. The silence in the room tightens. Then, the faint click of his tongue. "Got something," he mutters. He turns the screen toward me. Rows of emails, lines of numbers, attached memos. The subject line repeats, "Trial 43A, Voss Consulting." One memo reads, "Subject G stable, increased dose." My chest tightens. "Subject G," I whisper. "That's me." He nods grimly. "There's enough here for conspiracy and attempted homicide." Micro reveal. Payment receipts show $38,400, same as before, funneled monthly through Linda's account. Later that afternoon, I sit in the hallway outside the police office while Hall questions Linda. Through the thin wall, I can hear her muffled sobs. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she says. "He said it was just experimental, something to help her sleep. Then he changed the plan." When they lead her out, her hands tremble so badly she can't button her coat. Her eyes meet mine for a heartbeat. Wide, broken, human. That's when it hits me. Not everything about this nightmare was driven by hatred. Some of it was weakness, silence, and fear of losing comfort. Still deadly, just quieter. Relief and heartbreak twist together inside me until I can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Outside the station, reporters wait under umbrellas, their voices overlapping like rain on tin. Flashbulbs pop. One young woman steps forward, microphone shaking in her hand. "Mrs. Langston," she calls out, "why didn't you leave sooner?" The question slices through me more than it should. I stop, turn, and meet her eyes. "Because," I say softly, "I didn't yet believe evil could sound like love." Her mouth opens to ask more, but I walk away. Some answers don't need repeating. That evening, back at Ruth's, the house smells faintly of stew and wet wool. The clock ticks again, the same rhythm as this morning, but the sound feels different, less like counting time, more like marking survival. I pick up the newspaper again, read the headline twice, then fold it neatly and set it aside. The storm has moved out to sea, but the air still hums with aftermath. When darkness falls, I almost drift into sleep for the first time in weeks. My body remembers how. My mind almost trusts it. Then the phone rings. The sound slices through the calm. Ruth stirs but doesn't wake. I lift the receiver. The voice on the other end is calm, professional. The clerk's office. "Mrs. Langston," he says, "the judge has scheduled a verdict announcement for tomorrow morning. Be present by 9. I thank him, hang up slowly, and stare at the dark window pane. The reflection looking back at me is someone I barely recognize. Tired, older, but alive. Behind me, Ruth's soft breathing fills the room. Outside, the last of the rain taps gently against the glass. Tomorrow, everything ends, or begins again. And I realize, as I pull the blanket closer, that survival doesn't always sound like triumph. Sometimes it just sounds like breathing. The courtroom held its breath. Papers shuffled softly, echoing against the high ceiling. I could see my own breath fog faintly in the cool air. Each exhale proof that I was still here, still alive to hear what came next. The judge's voice broke the silence. "Aaron Langston, guilty of attempted murder and insurance fraud." For a moment, no one moved. Then the sound began. A single gasp, then another, a ripple of disbelief spreading through the benches. Linda Voss let out a sob so sharp it cut through the echo. She pressed a tissue to her mouth, shaking her head over and over as though denial could rewrite the verdict. The gavel struck once. A deep, final thud. The faint scent of ink and paper hung in the air. My hands rested on the rough wood rail, fingers tracing its grooves. I didn't cheer, I didn't cry. I just exhaled. A long, slow breath that seemed to carry the months of fear, the sleepless nights, the poison in my veins, the silence of disbelief. Aaron didn't look at the judge. He looked at me. His eyes were dry, blank, like a man who'd finally run out of lies to live behind. For the first time, he looked smaller than I remembered. His confidence gone, his sharp edges dulled. The bailiff read the rest of the judgment. Sentencing postponed pending hospital cooperation. Words blurred together until only 2 stood out. Case closed. But it wasn't. Not really. Not yet. As the clerk gathered the exhibits, one sealed envelope slipped loose from the file stack and landed near my seat. My name was written across it, Grace Langston, in neat, familiar pen strokes. Michelle picked it up, frowned, and handed it to me. "It's from Dr. Myers," she whispered. "Looks like a backup copy of his report." My pulse jumped. I broke the seal carefully. Inside, a single page, dated the week before my surgery, in clear black ink. Cardiac function normal, no surgical intervention necessary. I swallowed hard. Proof that I had never been sick. Proof he had been trying to kill me all along. Tucked behind it was another page, thinner, with a different signature. Dr. James Felder. But Michelle's eyes widened when she saw it. "There's no doctor by that name in the county," she said quietly. "He forged another identity. Someone at the hospital signed off under it." Micro reveal. It wasn't just Aaron. It was a chain. People who'd looked away or signed their names for money. Michelle sighed, sliding the papers into a clear folder. "We'll open an inquiry. This doesn't end here." I nodded, though my energy had drained away. My fight was over, even if justice wasn't. Ruth touched my shoulder gently. "You did it," she said. "You made them see you." I wanted to believe that. For once, maybe, I did. When the bailiff led Aaron past me, I felt no satisfaction, only a quiet ache, a tired sympathy for the man who traded love for greed and lost both. He paused as he passed, his cuffed hands steady. Our eyes met one last time. There was no plea, no anger, only emptiness. A man undone by the weight of his own signature. The gavel sounded again. The court clerk called for a recess. People began to stand, talking softly. I stayed seated until the room cleared. The wooden bench creaked beneath me. I stared at the envelope again, at my own name written by the man who had tried to warn me, and wondered if he'd known how much that letter would one day mean. The sunlight hit the glass panels high above the courtroom doors, bright and gold. For the first time in what felt like forever, it didn't hurt my eyes. I stood slowly, every motion deliberate, and gathered my things. Michelle was still talking to the detectives, and Ruth was waiting by the door with her coat. As I stepped into the hallway, the world outside hummed alive again. Voices, footsteps, the faint smell of coffee from the courthouse cafe, the buzz of news cameras somewhere beyond the pillars. But I didn't stop. I walked out into the open sunlight, the letter still in my hand, unopened now, not from fear, but from choice. Because for the first time, I didn't need proof to know I had survived. And this time, the air outside tasted like freedom. Months have passed. I live now in a quiet coastal town, the kind where every morning smells like salt and rain, and every evening hums with the sound of the sea. The air carries a faint trace of hospital disinfectant, or maybe that's just what memory smells like when it refuses to leave. I rent a small room above a bakery. The window looks out over the water, and the gulls wake me before dawn. Sometimes I still startle awake, half expecting a doctor's whisper in the dark. "If you sleep tonight, you'll never wake up." At the local clinic, I volunteer twice a week. I hold the hands of patients who tremble before anesthesia, the ones who ask too many questions because they've seen too many things go wrong. Their fear is familiar. I tell them, "You're stronger than you think," and sometimes they believe me. The nurses here don't know my story. They just know me. As Grace Myers, a volunteer, reliable, and quiet. It's easier that way. On quiet afternoons, when the tide is low, I sit on the rocks behind the clinic and let the wind pull my thoughts backward. Through the storm, through the courtroom, through the long tunnel of nights when I thought I'd never see morning again. Dr. Myers's whisper, the bitter taste of that white pill. Ruth's old tape recorder is clicking on. Each sound comes back in pieces, stitched together by survival. The sealed envelope I once carried from court still lies in my drawer. One evening, I finally opened it. Inside was another note, written in Dr. Myers's familiar hand. Just 7 words. Truth saves those who stay awake. I read it until the ink blurred. It wasn't only a warning, it was a promise. Every April 12th, I drive to the cemetery 2 towns over. I bring white lilies, the ones he always kept in his office. I stand by his grave and whisper, "Thank you." The ocean wind carries my voice somewhere I can't see. I still don't sleep easily, but when I do, it's an honest rest, the kind that doesn't need to hide behind silence. The sea air tastes of salt. The flowers rustle in the wind, and fine sand grits between my shoes as I walk back to my car. I never look behind me. People still ask, "Do you ever regret not forgiving him?" I always answer the same way. Forgiveness isn't a door you open for them, it's a window you open for yourself. Aaron's name appears sometimes in old articles or legal journals. Life sentences shrink with time. Maybe he'll walk free one day. But if he does, I hope he finally understands what he took and what he could never own. My will to live. Sometimes I think about the other women I saw in that courthouse. The quiet ones, the dismissed ones, the ones who looked like they hadn't been believed in years. I wonder how many of them carried secrets heavy enough to drown in. So now, when someone at the clinic asks why I keep volunteering, I tell them the truth. Because silence almost killed me. Listening saved me. And I mean it. Voiceover reflection. They thought fear would silence me, but silence taught me to listen, to the sound of my own heart, to the truth in the quiet between breaths. I close my eyes and let the sea wind fill the space where pain used to live. There's no cliffhanger left, no enemy, no vengeance, just peace. A quiet, earned peace that tastes like salt and morning light. Dignity over revenge. Forgiveness without forgetting. That's what I owe myself. That's what we owe our mothers. And if someone ever whispers to you that your life depends on staying awake, believe them. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to breathe and remember the power of truth and courage. Somewhere out there, a woman like Grace is still fighting to be heard, still learning that her strength was never gone. It was only waiting. If you felt her pain, her fear, and her victory, please like this video. Share it so more people can hear her story, and subscribe to this channel for more powerful tales of justice, survival, and dignity. Your support helps keep these stories alive, because sometimes staying awake is the only way we survive.